Look, it's always a pleasure being here. Virtually, I will be in London in about 4 hours. But yeah, it's always a pleasure speaking to the like-minded people. First, I'd like to thank everybody for the support that was given to me during the reselection process. It was really, really warmly received up in Liverpool, and me personally as well, seeing the messages of support from Right to Food London and some of the key activists up there, and it meant to be a lot to get their messages of solidarity, and shows that the work we're doing is actually working. Just give you an overview of where we are, and I think we've come a really long way, probably since we spoke last time. You know, I think Sharon's mentioned a few of the key highlights nationally, but if we look at what we're trying to achieve with the Right to Food, and certainly our perspective up here was to put something together which gives people an understanding of what a Right to Food may look like, and that was the submission which went into Zimbabwe, drew up by Shami Chakrabarti, myself, other politicians, doctors, food nutritionists, educators, and the 5 demands of what were on the screen before with Sharon. And they're just starting points. You know, they're just, we feel as though address or begin to address some of the issues, what we're seeing now. So we had that, and then we won't get nothing, in my opinion, if you've got this fantastic potential starting point, but it's got to pressurize the decision makers to actually enact what we're attempting to do. And I think that's what we've tried to do with the Right to Food movement, which is build a mass movement of many different moving parts with the sole objective and aim of alleviating what we're seeing in our communities regarding food poverty and eradicate it. You know, that's what we want to do. We want to eradicate poverty, let's say it as it is, you know, eradicate food banks, eradicate what's happening in all our communities. And that's why we're sitting on this Zoom. So regarding the Right to Food movements, we've tried to encompass trade unions. So obviously we got unanimously supported by the TUC. The Labour Party, we got it unanimously supported on the floor of the conference and adopted as a policy by the Labour Party. The fight obviously will begin, and I'll touch on that in a minute regarding manifestos. We've got a mass movement now growing daily of football supporters who are using fan support food banks to come on board. You know, and only the last 6 weeks, we've seen in Scotland, we've seen Rangers and Celtic supporters coming together, putting aside tribal differences and collecting food and campaigning for the Right to Food. Now, that's remarkable. And we put that into context. Sharon touched on Millwall, West Ham. We've got Manchester United, Manchester City playing today, both collecting at Old Trafford together. You know, again, tribal differences being put aside. If I wasn't coming to London now, I'll be over at Goodison with Dave and Robbie collecting outside Goodison. And what we're trying to do by doing that is obviously the stick and plaster element, which is to create an here and now help for our people. You know, we fed 100,000 people last year in Liverpool, and we're going to surpass that this year with our food pantries across the city. Always a stick and plaster, always an act of solidarity, but always mindful of the fact that we need to eradicate it, and we need to eradicate what's happening in our community. And that's what the Right to Food is. But I can't express how proud I am of the fact that we brought these clubs together, we brought supporters together, putting aside tribal differences, focusing working class minds on who the real enemy is. And that's so powerful, and it's so important to where we need to go and how we need to get there. And, you know, in 4 weeks' time, potentially we're going over to Belfast, where the derby between 2 great clubs is taking place. You know, that's Protestants and Catholics putting aside tribal differences in Belfast and coming together around the Right to Food. You know, these are really, really powerful symbols of what we've achieved with the campaign, and that is where we'll get our strength. You then look at campaigns which are happening on the ground now. So obviously I'm involved in the Enough's Enough campaign, one of the founder members. You know, over, I think it's nearly, or at least 500,000 people signed up. They're outside protesting today on the right to strike. Again, it gives us a fantastic opportunity because a right to food is one of the key asks of the Enough's Enough campaign. You've got Unite for the Workers' Economy. Again, we've been working with Unite through Dave and myself. That's also key ask now of their campaign model, which is a right to food. So what you're doing is utilising every single opportunity you can, every campaign, Also, the People's Assembly we're meeting today, that we fully support their aims and objectives, and with a key partner with them, the Right to Food movement. So again, it's not working in silos. It's absolutely accessing every available conduit we've got to push the message of why we need the right to food, what it could look like, and educate our people in why it doesn't have to be this way. And I think that's so important. Such an important part of the campaign is building that mass movement, and we're getting results. You look at what we've done with regards highlighting elements of the right to food. So you look at the universal free school meals elements of it. We've got national campaigns now run by the NEU regarding universal free school meals, focused on primary. That's not, I've made a speech in Parliament this week. For me, it's universal, and that's what we're certainly pushing for. But you've got what's happening in Tower Hamlets. I'm going to be sitting down with some of the people from Tower Hamlets in the coming weeks, seeing how they're going to be framing what they're doing with regard to universal free school meal offering. I mean, so we've actually got elements of the right to food being implemented. Just last week, Steve Rotherham and Metro Mayor of Liverpool done a report on food security. Right to food was at the heart of it. I met the new leader of Liverpool Council, Liam Robinson, last week alone. Again, that's going to be in the Labour Party manifesto in Liverpool. It's been adopted by the city, but it's how it's going to be shaped in the manifesto, and that's what we're working on now. So we're seeing really councils grasping the notion of the right to food and how they can shape it for their communities. We've got a meeting next week with the leader of Carlisle City Council. So it's growing and it's building, and that comes from obviously building the mass movements, putting it on the top of the political agenda, and then being able to shape where we are and what that can look like. And I think that's going to look differently in communities to councils, which is fantastic to see, because that sort of elements of it is how we get it implemented now, and that's really, really important. So I'm proud of the fact that I'm working alongside you. I look at London, or me and Dave and everybody involved in Fan Supporting Food Banks, the Right to Food campaign. Look at London as a fantastic example of people who are going out there showing activism. You've seen what's happening in Byrne's with the community kitchens, and it's just great to see. It really is. It gives the whole movement such a boost when we see the activism that's taking place in London, and it's fantastic. And I think what we use are trying to do, like we're all trying to do, is take the right to food out of of a textbook, of an application, of a submission, and show what it can look like on the ground. We were extremely proud in October to do community kitchens. We took over the school for the week in my constituency in West Derby. We turned it into a restaurant. We had the kids coming in, booking tables with the families, extended families, bringing people in the community that were hungry. And for the week, we took over the school kitchen from 4:30 to 6:30. It was a massive success. And the idea behind that was working with the fantastic Bryce from Liverpool University, who has done a fantastic book on wartime kitchens and what happened then, and that template and that model. Working with Bryce to shape what we could do in Liverpool and create a template which then we could say to the city and the city council, and we will be saying that in the when we're shaping the Right to Food manifesto in Liverpool, that a lot of communities have lost so much resource, schools potentially the only thing standing, and if they're under council control and they're not academies, and you haven't got you can actually influence it through your councils, well then that's what we feel as though should be utilised, because having community kitchens within the community, supplying hot food in a welcoming way, sitting down with your families, breaking bread together and friends in a warm environment, and that's something which we could work on, and which is something which we were extremely proud to do and created. So that's there now as a template. That's took the community kitchen elements out the Right to Food and said, but this is what we can do. That'll be happening in different ways across the country, in different versions. Obviously, I'm going to speak to the people in Brent and see how they did it, what they're looking at doing. But, that's something which the Right to Food is within one of the 5 key demands. And again, it shows the political decision makers what's possible and what can happen. Politically, in Westminster, we keep banging down the door Obviously, you've seen the photograph with Sharon when Sunak was Chancellor, and we give that letter to Sunak. Now he's Prime Minister. We're entering, well, we're at the teeth of a cost of living crisis. It's probably, or it will get worse. Potentially going into recession. We're seeing strikers. We're seeing people out on strike, demanding better terms and conditions, better pay to keep their heads above water. That's a massive part of the Right to Food campaign as well, because if you look at every single general secretary from trade unions now, we're talking about food poverty in relation to what's happening to their membership. And it's a key part of the demands, keeping people out of food banks and food poverty by ensuring that wages have the ability to keep people, out of that situation, which is massively important, and it's really powerful, and it cuts through with the public. And I think that's been a real key element of driving successful campaigns from a trade union perspective, which are a key part of the Right to Food. I think a key part of what we need to be doing in the next year is demanding, shaping political parties' manifestos. And that's going to be really, really important element of this year. That's what we'll be focusing on as well from a Right to Food campaign and fan supporting food banks, is the political decision makers in an upcoming election. If they have a right to food within the manifesto, what does that look like? And we should be pushing that, and that should be a demand of all political parties, that we've got that change in legislation. That's what we want, a right to food. And then obviously that can be shaped. We've got a key element of the Right to Food submission was ensuring that whatever government today has to come before Parliament and explain how the amount within the benefits can ensure that the person receiving the benefits can live in a dignified, healthy manner. And that's really, really important. And that's a key demand of the Right to Food, which is, what AFAN and many others rightly campaign on, which is the cash first element. And we're fully supportive of that element. And that's why it's within the Right to Food. So 2023 is going to be a really pivotal moment. As I said, to sum up, we're seeing councils actually take them, grasp the mantle, deliver change through Tower Hamlets. We look at universal free school meals and what they're going to implement. We've got councils now. We were looking at what a Right to Food could look like, how that can be implemented in manifestos. So on a granular level, you've got your councils, and then at a national level, we're probably a year away potentially from general elections. So we need to be building this mass movement, demanding that we want to see a Right to Food in manifestos, and we want to see elements that, obviously enacted. And that's what we're seeing across the board. So it's going to be a busy time. But, I think we all rightfully should be proud of what we've done so far. We've put the Right to Food at the top of the political agenda. In Parliament 6 weeks ago on a for food security meeting, I got the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the Right to Food talking about the Right to Food on the food security committee, and talking about the importance of universal free school meals. So that was really important moment. We had AFAN Food Foundation again, talking about supporting the Right to Food, put it on record. So when that food security report comes out, we can start shaping that. We're hoping to have the Select Committee come to Liverpool and look at what's happening on the ground to combat food security, all with obviously a Right to Food, demand. So I think politically we've got lots and lots to do this year. Obviously, from a London perspective, yous are far more in tune up there than I am, and rightly so. Potentially, you'll have mayoral elections. I know I sat in the panel with Sadiq Khan, and he talked about universal free school meals in the Labour Party conference. So, I think this is where we need to be doing. We need now to be pressurising all political decision makers on why it's imperative that we have legislationally change for the Right to Food and determine what that looks like and how that looks like on both a national level and a local level. So I'll leave it there. I'd just like to thank every single one of you for what you're doing. Outstanding work. I said, we're extremely proud to be aligned with you in Liverpool. And the end of the day, this is about activism. This is about creating a mass movement. This is about getting the message through, and this is about demanding change. And I think we're all attempting to do that. So thanks very much for listening, and I'll hot-footed to Liverpool Lime Street and try and answer any questions at half 11.
Brilliant.